So after finally dipping my toes into Shroud's new shooter Spectre Divide, safe to say that this game will be my new tac shooter of choice when it officially launches. If you haven't heard, Shroud teamed up with a small independent studio called Mountaintop Studios to make a tac shooter of their own. Now, if you look at the gameplay, you probably sit there and say that it took heavy inspirations from Valorant, and that's because it did. Things such as the user interface, heroes, etc., are all inspired from Valorant or Counter-Strike, and yes, there is a lot of similarities here, but there's a major twist. Where Counter-Strike and Valorant are 5v5 shooters, Spectre Divide is a 3v3 shooter, but each player controls two bodies. They call this duality. So when you go into a game, you have two bodies that you control for your class. And the way it works is, for anyone who's played Yoru from Valorant, you have a puck that you can throw around, and when you throw it, that is where your other body will be. This puck and moving it around the map is necessity for this game, because if you want to reach certain high ground places, the only way to do so is to throw your puck on the elevated platform and then switch bodies. You can switch bodies on the fly, so much so that when you plant the bomb, you can plant the bomb with one Spectre and instantly switch to your other body to cover yourself while your other Spectre plants or defuses the bomb. This duality functionality is the bread and butter of this game, but I'll get to that in a moment. When you fire up the game, there is a mandatory tutorial where it walks you through all the fundamentals of the game and it explains the duality functionality. And much like Counter-Strike, much like Valorant, at the beginning of every round, there is a buy phase where you have to buy your gear and your abilities, etc. The difference is you're buying it for two bodies, not for one. So when you look at the buy menu of the game, you'll notice that at the top you have 5 tiers for primary weapons, and each weapon at the top has an anchor weapon. That anchor weapon is automatically part of the package, and then you're choosing one of the other 3 weapons in that tier to be paired with it. What this means is you have to think on a big scale on what each Spectre you have is going to have for a weapon. For example, if you choose tier 5, which is the operator, no matter which side weapon you choose, you always have the operator. But you have a choice between a shotgun, an SMG, and a rifle. And the prices will vary depending on what the side weapon is, with the rifle being the strongest and most expensive, and the SMG being the weakest and therefore being the cheapest package. What this means is that you cannot have 2 Spectres with the same weapon. You cannot buy them. You can't sit there and say, I want 2 AKs, one for each Spectre. No. Either a teammate has to be kind enough to drop their AK for you to have it, or you have to pick it up from a dead body in the middle of a round. You cannot buy yourself 2 AKs. It doesn't work that way. And because each Spectre in general is going to have a different weapon, you got to play around that fact. So if you choose tier 3 and have a mid-tier AR, but you pair it with a shotgun, that means the Spectre that has the shotgun, you have to be smart and use your game sense to position it in a manner where it can be effective, because that shotgun can't take mid to long range engagements like your rifle can. So there's this huge functionality, this huge amount of game sense that is required to play this game. Not to mention, because you are controlling 2 bodies at once, it makes for some ridiculous outplay potential. The amount of big brain plays that you can make in this game because you control 2 bodies is insane. Again, if you play Valorant and you're a Yoru main or you're an Omen main and you like to make those big brain plays, this game is for you. Because this duality functionality, controlling two bodies, it's a game changer on how the game is played. On the surface, if you look at the game, if you see it, you'd be like, oh, it's Valorant. Yes, but it doesn't play like Valorant. And the duality functionality is very important and a big aspect as to why it doesn't. Another reason why this game doesn't quite play like Valorant is because while Valorant, they adopted the Counter-Strike shooting mechanics, for Spectre Divide, they went in a different approach. You may have noticed in the footage that there's a lot of aim down sights. That's because in this game, when you aim down sights, you are 100% accurate even while moving. This is completely different from what it is in Counter-Strike or Valorant, where in those games you have to stand still. So you either stand still, hold an angle, or you're counter-strafing, because if you move and shoot, you will be greatly inaccurate. This game, it's the opposite. You're going to be aim down sights a lot, because that is where you get the 100% accuracy even while moving. Because these are the type of shooting mechanics that are in the game, it allows you to make more aggressive plays in combination with using your Spectre. Another thing that I want to point out about this game is this game has a crew functionality. Basically, you have a crew and you can climb a leaderboard and it's refreshed weekly. This is to keep players engaged so that as you're playing, you always have some sort of leaderboard to chase. Maybe one week your crew ended up 5th. And then maybe the next week you end up 1st. But the whole purpose is you and everybody in your crew, which is more than, bear in mind, your crew can have like 50 players. It's like a clan. Everybody contributes to the success of the crew. So it is something that when you're in a crew, everybody can contribute and you are rewarded for queuing up with people within your crew. Now, I've spoken a lot of positives about this game. I like the mechanics. I like the duality functionality. It's fresh. It's exciting. I like the idea of making lots of big brain plays. But being a beta, being a work in progress, it's not perfect. One of the issues that I have with the game in its current state is it doesn't do a good enough job distinguishing teammates from enemies. The amount of times I have shot at a teammate thinking it was an enemy is ridiculous. And it's because while there is an outline to highlight your enemies, the game is so rich and full of color that it is hard to tell. It really, really is half the time where you're questioning whether or not that's a teammate or an enemy, and you have to either look for the little icon underneath the body to say it's a teammate, or you're looking on the radar to make sure it's a teammate. So there is a visibility issue in terms of distinguishing friend from foe. That was the number one issue that I have with the game currently. The other issue, and this one is kind of a subjective one, is the art style. Now, for me personally, I do like the vibrant colors. I do like the way that is, but I'm not a big fan of the cell shaded approach. Now, I understand why they did this. They did this to keep the system requirements low, but they also did this because, again, this is a small team. They don't have the budget to put out high fidelity visuals. And of course, when you're talking about a tactical shooter, you want visibility to be clean and clear. The more clean the visibility is, the better it is for tournament play, for esports, because everybody can see and understand what's happening, versus a game like Overwatch where there's so much on-screen clutter, you can easily get confused with what's going on screen. So the art style of the game, it is subjective. I'm not saying it doesn't look good. I'm just not too keen on it in comparison to a game like Valorant. I do appreciate Valorant's art style more than this, but at the same time, that is not a deterrent from me to stop playing this game. As I said, this game will be my main tac shooter of choice once it releases, because personally, as much as I enjoy Valorant and as much as I enjoy Counter-Strike, I've never been a fan of those games' shooting mechanics, where this game's shooting mechanics is more my speed, and it's just a personal preference at that point. Plus, as I touched on at the beginning of the video, controlling two bodies, not only is it a fresh take in the first-person shooter genre, but it's the big brain plays. The plays that you can make in this game, it's going to be a highlight reel machine, especially as players get good and they realize what you can and can't do. It's basically, it comes down to how big is your imagination and how good your game sense is, because you do need to keep track of two bodies at the same time. So overall though, Spectre Divide plays fantastic. The audio is good. The abilities that are in this game are good. The balance of this game is actually really good, which is very important in a tac shooter. Balance is very important in these games, and Spectre Divide is pretty balanced. I have yet to feel like there is something that is ridiculously underpowered or ridiculously overpowered. Everything seems to be in a good balanced state. Never once did I feel like any of the characters I've played were underpowered, nor did I ever feel like this character was oppressive to play against and I'm seeing them in every single lobby. Balance is really, really good. As I said, this is a hero shooter, much like Valorant. The big takeaway, the big difference here is there's no ultimates in this game. And I love that. I love that there is no ultimates in this game, because as much as I enjoy Valorant, the ultimates in that game oftentimes are I win buttons. You know, when Sova can kill you from safety, when Brimstone can kill you from safety simply because they can pop an ultimate and there's nothing you can do about it other than to run away, assuming you don't get caught on some sort of utility or whatever, it's not as good as a feeling. While it is a big brain play for the people using the ultimates and doing combos and stuff, it's just like the round ends just like that and there was nothing really you could do about it. So there is no ultimates in this game, which also helps with the game's balance, keeping things in line, where a lot of Valorant is dependent on ability usage. This game is still mechanically driven. But overall, Spectre Divide looks to be a very, very promising game. I don't know when the release date is. I don't know if this is a 2024 release or if this is a 2025 release. They haven't said. But I'm looking forward to when this game fully launches. As I said, it will be my main tac shooter of choice. I'm having a blast playing this game. I couldn't put it down. And when this beta ends, I'm going to be pretty sad, because Valorant or Counter-Strike is not going to scratch the same itch as this game. Like, on the surface, it looks like Valorant, but the duality functionality really, really is a game changer. And if you're saying that this is a Valorant clone and you haven't played it, you don't know what you're talking about. This is Veteran Gamer, and I hope to see you guys next time.